Hello. So I was a team leader on the Department for Work in Universal Credit Claim Review teams outsourced to Teleperform. If you have experienced any problems with your Universal Credit Claim Review, this is how to go about raising a legitimate complaint. Now, I have experienced that there were agents that were doing a variety of things incorrectly, such as not actioning any information that was sent in by claimants within a timely process. This included when claimants had, the very day it had been requested, uploaded all of the documents that they were requested to provide, and the agent would leave it until the 14th day deadline to even attempt to begin to process these. And then, without giving any opportunity for the claimant to be corrected, to provide that correct information, if, for example, they've provided 4 months of a transaction history rather than 4 full statements, which is what was required for the process, they would wait until then to even look at the thing or process it or do anything, and then just hand over for you to lose your benefits, to be sanctioned or suspended for the agent refusing to do their work. This is obviously a legitimate complaint for you to raise. There's also been many instances where agents have either marked no reply needed or ignored claimants that have asked, is this information correct? Do I need to do anything else? Can I rearrange my interview? A variety of different things. And again, agents would be ignoring these and just waiting until the 14th day deadline to then hand over to get you suspended and to lose your benefits. So if these sorts of things have caused you any issues, then you are fully entitled to raise a complaint against the agents and the organisation that have done this to you, because if you have been affected and you've lost your benefits, or it's affected you, for example, if you've got mental health concerns, because again, there were agents that were ignoring urgent messages that needed to be responded within 2 days where people were raising mental health concerns. And either they were marking these no reply needed incorrectly or just completely ignoring these. And again, you would be fully entitled to raise a complaint about these. So if any of these issues have happened, if you've been left ignored on responses, or you've tried to provide the information but they haven't provided you the opportunity to correct the information when it has not been provided correctly, then you are entitled to raise a complaint. And they really should be either giving you an ad hoc call to try and explain what has gone wrong, or a very clear journal message that explains you've provided 4 months of a transaction history, but we cannot accept that information. It needs to be the latest 4 full month statements you have available. If you do not have these, you can go to your branch of your bank and get these stamped and printed and then photograph these, and we can accept that. However, a great many agents were not doing this, just finding that if they ignore the claimants and do not process them, that they can just avoid doing their work, because they would not have to do the actual analysis of the bank statements if they don't provide the claimants the opportunity to provide it correctly. And that was a major problem. So we all need to rise up and put these complaints in against where, you know, you've not been provided the opportunity, and if you get suspended out of your benefits, or if you get sanctions because they've not given you that opportunity to provide that information, you need to fully raise a concern or complaint. So the complaints procedure is on gov.uk/government/organisations/Department for Work Pensions /about/complaints procedure. It will explain the complaints procedure, which includes where you can raise a concern or make a complaint with the service provided by the DWP. If mistakes have been made, there were unreasonable delays. That includes where they've unreasonably waited until the 14-day deadline to even contact you about the information that you provided well in advance of then, and they should have either accepted in or told you, this is incorrect, this is what is incorrect, this is what is missing, and given you that opportunity to provide the information within the deadline. If they've not done that, then you have a legitimate complaint against them. And if they are not responding to you and you've provided them send them a journal message. If they don't respond, then again, you've got more evidence of them being unreasonably delayed, and get that complaint in. If you feel you've been treated poorly, again, there are a great many instances where the agents at Teleperformance, not all of them, there were good ones like the ones that I had on my team initially that I had trained, and then there were ones that I was put into a team that I had to take over that were absolutely treating claimants poorly. And so if you've been treated poorly, if you've been ignored, if you've been illegally suspended when they've not given you the opportunity to provide that information, if you haven't been kept informed, so if they've not updated you on things in a reasonable time frame, there are again agents at Teleperformance that have been ignoring claimants for 2-3 months, and you've got a 14-day deadline to provide that information. If you've provided that information, they've not even processed it and they've just ignored you for the next 2-3 months, you haven't been kept informed. There are unreasonable delays and you have been treated poorly, and you should be raising complaints about them for that. Even if they are now only just starting to process that information, that's been an unreasonable delay and you've been mistreated. If they are now asking you for even more bank statements that are more recent because they haven't actioned it in a reasonable time frame, there are unreasonable delays, you've been treated poorly and you haven't been kept informed, and it's that agent's fault for not doing the work. It's not your fault, you provided the information, they just haven't bothered processing it because they are trying to avoid doing the work. And I've witnessed that working at Teleperformance. They are doing that. So you should be filing the complaints about them. And they are DWP staff. They have a Department for Work and Pensions email. Even though they are outsourced through Teleperformance, they are still DWP staff. They have Department for Work and Pensions emails. They are fully on the systems. They are absolutely DWP staff. We will not investigate complaints about a government policy or law. So it's not about the fact that the claim reviews are going on, it's about the way that you've been treated throughout the process and the way that they have, either ignored the information you've provided, not given you the opportunity to provide that information correctly by telling you what is wrong, what is missing, and giving you with that within a reasonable time frame. Or if they have completely mistreated you, ignored you, not changed your appointments, ignored anything you said, then you've been handed over and suspended, and that is, again, that's something that is legitimate to raise. If you've been investigated or are currently being investigated by the Independent Case Examiner or Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman, they are obviously higher up steps, so we would not have a complaint in about those because, the ICE would be run its own investigations. And that would usually come after this sort of complaint process, that if that was not successful, you would then move on to the Independent Case Examiner. An organisation that provides DWP services, for example, employment programs or health assessment providers, contact them directly. This doesn't include Teleperformance because Teleperformance is not shown to be separate to the DWP. They are DWP staff, they are working for the Department for Work and Pensions, they have their own teams within there. It will probably say something like Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4, Team 5, Team 6 or Team 7, because they are the Teleperformance teams under the name of the agent that's contacting you. So if you see any of those, they are Teleperformance, and there's a very good chance that you are being treated poorly. They are or have been subject to legal proceedings, including legal settlements. Again, if you've got any legal proceedings or settlements, then you can't complain about those. But if it is through the DWP teams 1 through 7, then you have a legitimate complaint because they do not tell you that they are separate to the DWP. They are being treated as DWP. They say, for example, on the phone calls that they're working for Department for Work and Pensions. They are working for Department for Work and Pensions. You have the right to complain about these. You can challenge or appeal a benefit decision. So if you have, for example, lost your benefits or been suspended or anything like that as a result of these claim reviews, you are welcome to an appeal. So you should request a mandatory reconsideration. Okay, you can raise concern directly. So you'll need your national insurance number, your full name, address, and contact numbers, which benefits or business area you're raising a concern about, what happened. So even if you haven't been suspended yet, if you've been ignored or you've been mistreated throughout the process, you are entitled to raise a concern. Should be doing so. What happened, when it happened, how it affected you, what you want them to do to put things right. So if the claimant is ignoring, not the claimant, if the agent is ignoring you, if the agent has mistreated you in any way, if they've spoken to you poorly on the telephone, if they've not given you an opportunity to provide the information correctly, if you've provided it and they've not responded to you, if you've tried to request your appointment to be changed and they've not responded to you within a reasonable time frame, which would be within 48 hours, then you should get your complaint in. If you've experienced unfair treatment, we may consider making an apology, providing explanation, taking corrective action, or making a special payment if you've suffered financially. So if you've lost your benefits or been sanctioned or suspended as a result of these claim reviews, you may be entitled to a payment as a result of the action, especially if they have not given you an opportunity to provide that information correctly by ignoring it and only going on day 14, which is the deadline, and saying you haven't provided it correctly and then handing it over to get you suspended, which is not appropriate. So what you would want to do is scroll all the way down to Universal Credit section, click the make a complaint, and then you'll need your national insurance number, your contact details, your postcodes, and then there will just actually full details in there. So you put all your details. It's not going to let me go to the next stage without putting all details. Then it will ask you all about your complaint and what your complaint is about, and you should put all of the details in there. How you were treated, what went wrong, how you felt about that situation, what you think should have happened, and how you've been attempting to participate in the process, but they've not provided you that opportunity. And yeah, just make sure you put all of those details as much as possible in there and get your complaints in. This is the only way that things will be put right, because the company does not seem to care at the moment, at present, correct, at the time of point of view. They seem to think that it's fine to just allow agents to ignore claimants for 14 days and then hand them over, claiming them to have not provided the information correctly while not giving them the opportunity to provide it correctly. That is completely inappropriate and unacceptable. So you should get your complaint in, and the more people that get their complaint in immediately together, the more they'll pay attention, the more that they will realise that it is teleperformance that have been doing things wrong. So get your complaint in and do it now, because that is the correct way to raise your concerns about the Universal Credit Claim Reviews, stating that you don't believe that it's a legal process. There is obviously legal disclaimers, and this has been sanctioned by the Secretary of State, and you'll get a link to why we're conducting these claims, what information we need and why, and that will not prevent the claim review from going through. What you need to do is participate in the process and allow them to do things incorrectly as they currently are, and put your complaint in about them, which is legitimate with the reasons that I have raised, and maybe they will start to pay attention to the fact that teleperformance are doing this very wrong. Thank you for your time. See you around.